What is up, gamers? It is Styx here, and today I'm going to be going over the new trailer for Renegades. It covers some of the exotics and just weapons in general. They are specific about certain weapons being exotics, other ones appear to be legendary. I'm going to go over my thoughts on each of them, and then at the end I'm going to go over my thoughts on the general expansion, at least so far with the information that's come out, which I'm sure you're all aware is fairly limited. Either way, let's get into the video, and then I'll showcase my thoughts as things come up.
Welcome, Renegade. I have another bounty for you.
So immediately, we've got Spider doing what Spider does. He appears to be in the new area, which makes perfect sense for him. It's Renegades, it's a place for a bunch of outlaws. We're going to probably need his help once again. He might send us on another fetch quest. He's got his classic Dead Ghost in his hands. For new players who are unaware, Spider is a character who is a relatively notorious outlaw in our series. We have screwed him over a few times. He has screwed us over here and there. But overall, we have remained opportunistic allies. He also has a pretty disturbing habit of collecting dead ghosts.
But I don't pay for mercy.
Okay, so we've got the Uncivil Discourse, which, at least from what I can tell, seems to be yet another exotic hand cannon, but the archetype seems to be very similar to the Forerunner, which we already possessed, but it has some kind of overheat mechanic with it. That one just looks like a stasis pistol. It might be a double shot, but it doesn't look like it. It doesn't look like it's a burst at all. I think it looks something like, with the slow fire rate, it might be like a 120 or something, but I'm not 100% sure on that one. This pulse rifle looks interesting, but it seems to be barely more than a standard strand pulse rifle. A new heavy sniper is really cool. Interesting SMG. From what I can tell, that's another rocket sidearm, and looks like we're getting a void one, which is going to be really nice for people looking for those kinds of builds and stuff. I don't believe we've received a void rocket sidearm yet, so super cool.
Out here, there are no laws. No kills.
So Fortune's Favor is the Hunter exotic. So I'm going to pull up some Bungie tweets here. With the Fortune's Favor exotic, after landing a final blow while at full health, or when out of combat for an extended duration, your shields will recharge into an overshield. When you have any overshield, your weapons gain increased accuracy, stability, handling, and damage against combatants. And final blows will grant you a short period of increased mobility once the overshield is depleted. Now, this effect sounds, frankly, almost useless in PvE, because when you want an overshield, it's probably not going to be at full health, but it sounds downright oppressive in PvP. Imagine just for sitting around, or like just spawning in and walking around for a little bit, and you start regenerating an overshield. Depending on how much overshield that's giving you, that can be extremely significant. On top of that, increased accuracy, stability, handling, and damage. It says damage against combatants, so I would imagine the damage does not extend to PvP, but we'd have to see. And then the increased mobility, once the overshield is completed, like final blows on that, that could be interesting. I know people are comparing this to One-Eyed Mask. I don't think it's nearly as powerful as even current One-Eyed Mask, but it certainly looks like an interesting exotic, and it looks like I could see some really wild builds done with it in PvP specifically, built around maintaining and generating this overshield. But outside of PvP, it doesn't seem like it's going to do anything super interesting, in my opinion. Now, this is what everyone's going crazy about right now. Praxic Vestment. Gain an advanced tactical air move. Or, to be specific, gain an air move jetpack. Weapon and arc-powered melee final blows build up jetpack fuel. Activate your jetpack while airborne with a forceful blast of exhausting arc energy, then fly forward based on the amount charged. Collide with a combatant to unleash a blinding blast of energy and gain a temporary bonus to your melee stat. So anyone who's been upset that Titans have to run around and like punch things and all this, now you can fly around and punch things. This seems to be something potentially very fun. I could see it in PvP, infuriating, but also fun, obviously, for the player. It's definitely something you could say is, in a way, legally distinct to Twilight Garrison, just in the sense that Titans have wanted their air movement, and now they are potentially getting it in the form of Praxic Vestment, even though we were told, I believe, that Twilight Garrison was not coming back, or at least it wouldn't come back for a long time, and they didn't have to bring it back, because instead they gave Titans a jetpack. This might make me actually play some Titan in this expansion, if this is a fun enough exotic to use. Now, this exotic, deimosuffusion, is pretty interesting. The actual main effect is not what I'm interested in. Let me read the whole thing out to you really quickly. While a strand super is equipped, casting Rift will suspend nearby combatants. Suspend deals damage over time, healing you in the process. Combatants who break free from suspension suffer additional damage. Defeating suspended targets heals you a moderate amount. Now, when you hear that, the main effect is that casting a Rift suspends nearby combatants. Frankly, that sounds pretty terrible. Most of the time, you don't want to run up to a bunch of enemies and then use your Rift to try to suspend them. That's just not going to work, especially because suspended enemies can still shoot at you. So it's not like the stasis aspect that freezes them. It's not going to completely stop them from doing anything. It just suspends them in the air. So it's not going to be super useful in PvE, not going to be super useful in PvP either. However, the rest of the effect, suspend deals damage over time, healing you in the process. Combatants who break free from suspension suffer additional damage, and defeating suspended targets heals you a moderate amount. This has some interesting usefulness with the Broodweaver subclass as a whole, not just the main effect, but just building around suspend in general. For example, Mindspun Invocation, if you use it with a Shackle Grenade, will give you Weaver's Trance, so final blows, while it's active, create a suspending detonation. This is a way to generate a ton of suspensions. In addition to this, you can run the Wanderer aspect, which causes tangles you throw to attach to targets and detonate into a suspending burst. Then destroying a tangle also creates a suspending burst after a short delay, and Threadling final blows create tangles. So if you build into having some Threadlings with some of the weapons we currently have, and then having Mindspun Invocation with Weaver's Trance up while building into having a bunch of grenade energy to continuously keep the buff up, you can get a ton of mileage out of dealing damage over time depending on what the specific numbers are, and it could give you a ton of survivability if you're constantly healing in the process while all of those enemies are taking damage over time. This is also going to create a situation where there are enemies that you're going to have to let break free from suspension because you're suspending so many enemies, which would realistically never happen with just the Rift. In addition, when you do defeat suspended targets, it heals you a moderate amount. Overall, this is a potentially really nice exotic for Strand Warlocks. It entirely depends on what the specific numbers are. Even though the base effect by itself doesn't look all that interesting, it can be really strong in combination with some of these aspects if the numbers are big enough. If they're really small though, then obviously it's not going to work out very well. But either way, let's continue now that I'm done ranting about that exotic. I don't think anyone is surprised by the lightsaber. This is Chewbacca's crossbow, just so you're fully aware. Anyone who's never done Star Wars before, that's literally just Chewbacca's crossbow. It just is. It's like almost 1-for-1 his crossbow, which is fine. It looks like a very fun weapon, and very fun to use.
Welcome to the frontier, Renegade.
This last shot here, it looks a lot like a pyramid ship. So I'm very curious to see if we're going to find, for example, another of the disciples, maybe one that don't join the direct offensive for whatever reason, or if we find more individuals who have potentially taken down a disciple. Or it could just be an empty pyramid ship with nothing in it. Who knows? So that was my full breakdown of the new weapons and gear. Some of it's hard to tell because they basically just shoot it for like 3 frames. It looks like it's a legendary anyway, so we'll have to find out more when we get into the game. But at least for the standout exotics as well as the exotic armor, that is my general thoughts and the things that I think are important to look out for. All in all, this expansion looks like it could really be a toss-up. We didn't really see a whole lot of actual material on the content of what we're going to be playing in the game, but the exotics and the weapons, etc. all look like they have the potential to be really unique feeling and be pretty cool. And as long as the story and the content actually match up with that, then that would be great. But of course, there is a slightly worrying aspect to the lack of information. We will realistically have to see, but so far, I remain cautiously optimistic for Renegades. If you enjoy this kind of stuff, let me know down in the comments below. And if you like my insight, watch some more of my videos. I do a ton of build guides and stuff like that. If you watched up to this point, comment down below, Pumpkin the Renegade, and thanks for watching. Have a great day.